Good morning and happy Easter, fellow grounded travelers. How is everybody doing this morning? Hello, LNA. Good morning, Easter greetings to everybody. All right, just kind of organizing here. So I hope everyone's doing well this morning. Derek's drinking coffee. I'm drinking some green tea here.
We have our most Easter-y mugs.
Yes.
This is the closest thing we have.
Happy Easter, Rachel. Great to see you. I hope you're doing well. And let us know, you guys, if you guys are drinking coffee or tea too. Derek made some banana bread last night, and he is wanting to show it off this morning.
Baker extraordinaire. Smells good too.
So yeah, we thought we would just keep the regular scheduled programming, even though today is a holiday for many people. We decided...
Happy Easter!
Yes, to, since everybody's home anyway, keep the Easter live stream alive, and hopefully people would want to join too, even though we're all stuck at home. Hi, Katie Smith. Happy Easter
Katie,
to you too.
how are you?
Drinking tea this morning too. Okay, so I have another friend out there drinking tea with me. That's awesome.
What kind of tea are you drinking?
I'm drinking green tea. It's like a Tazo Zen.
Green tea.
In my Eastery mug.
Drinking the last remnants of our French press coffee from this morning. So
I think
still tired.
We'll just see if Hi, Karen Mack. Great to see you. Wow, this is great. I'm so glad other folks wanted to join, even though it was kind of a holiday morning. I'm really delighted by that.
Yeah, why don't you guys let us know what you guys are planning for the day, if anybody's doing big Zoom meetings where they're going to eat Easter brunch or whatever with family on Zoom, or what you guys are all up to today.
And I know
we're interested.
Not everybody celebrates the holiday. We have tons of Jewish friends, and I know Passover is this weekend too.
Or if you're doing Passover.
Well, Passover was the Seders and stuff were all, I believe, on Friday. But just wanted to spread that kind of cheer because really, more than anything, I feel like it's a great time to celebrate spring. Here in Chicago, it's been...
The weather's finally getting nicer.
Yeah, a little bit more mild.
Yeah. Went for a walk this morning, which was very nice. We planted a bunch of flowers and plants yesterday. We did some gardening here.
Yeah.
So working on the green thumb.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Hi, Darian, Germany Travel Personal Guide. Great to see you on too. Thanks for joining as well. Oh, this is exciting. So I'm glad to have so many travel friends on here. So one of the things that I know that Derek and I wanted to talk about this morning is just spring travel in general. I know that none of us are traveling right now and shouldn't be, but typically this time of year, Derek and I do take a trip, especially because his work gives Good Friday off, and so it's a long weekend for many people. So we've been very lucky to go on a lot of amazing spring trips, albeit
some
short
Easter
ones,
trips,
around the Easter holidays, and we thought we would talk about some of our top favorites on this chat today, as long as everyone's game to hear them.
Yeah, we can start that way, and if people have other questions and stuff that they want to ask us, they can throw those into the chat, and we'll get to those once we've kind of gone through our short list of favorite Easter excursions. You want to start off?
Sure. So I would say, okay, so let me just go over some of the ones that we've done probably in the last 5 years. A year ago this week, I was in Salt Lake City visiting Rachel, my best friend, and her birthday was this week too, so I was there visiting her for her birthday a year ago. And then also right before that, we were in LA. The year prior, we were actually out in California, but in San Diego, celebrating Derek's brother's wedding for Easter weekend.
San Diego's a great place all year round.
Yeah,
so
specifically we were
Easter or otherwise.
We're in La Jolla, California, which is a stunning beach, suburb of San Diego. How would you describe it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Beach suburb. It's nice.
Yeah. And then we've been to Delaware.
There's a Dr. Seuss tree No,
it
it's not
actually
anymore.
fell
It fell
down.
down.
Yeah.
That's sad. But that used to be. There's a park there. So Dr. Seuss used to live in La Jolla. That's where he wrote some of his books. And there was a tree in a park near where his house was that kind of resembled what the art for the Lorax tree was. So it was always kind of referred to as the Dr. Seuss Lorax tree. And unfortunately, I think about a year ago, it fell down. It died for whatever reason, and that's sad. But we were able to see it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's some pictures.
And there's great pictures of it that you can find online too. And then we've been to Washington, D.C. this time of year to see the cherry blossoms.
Which is always nice.
We haven't been able to time it perfectly with the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C.
We were actually there during the Cherry Blossom Festival one year, but the cherry blossoms were late blooming, so they weren't. There's barely any blooms on the trees that year, so that's a little unfortunate.
And when we did go to Delaware, specifically we were in Lewis and outside of Rehoboth Beach.
Yep,
and there were some cherry blossom trees blooming while we were in Delaware, which of course is, same typical climate as in DC. So we were able to experience that springtime cherry blossom, sensation.
Yeah, just
in a different place.
Yeah. I will say, that time we got to have a very nice brunch at a restaurant inside Lou's that was pretty cool, and it's they have like a big patio area where they have tables, and it was pretty cool.
Good morning, Mark Finley. Welcome.
Welcome, Mark.
Welcome. I hope the weather's lovely in Texas right now. I'm sure you guys have some springtime weather down there.
Weren't we in China?
So a year ago we went to China very soon after we were in.
Oh, okay.
We were in Salt Lake City and Los Angeles. And so we were in China in April of last year too. I don't think it was over Easter, but I
thought we had timed it.
am misremembering when Easter is last year, since it does change all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thought we had timed
Hi
it.
Frank, welcome. Great to have you guys on. I know it's a little bit earlier in Tucson, so thanks for dialing in.
I think it's also a little bit earlier in Texas, right?
No, Texas is on Central.
During Central Time? I don't know.
Derek.
It's hard, I go to Detroit a lot for work, and in Detroit, if you've ever been to the Detroit airport, you'll hear that they are on Eastern time zone, and they tell you that every 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and that it's very helpful and then very annoying very quickly.
Well, it's also tricky with Tucson because they don't change for daylight savings time. It's the only state. Arizona's the only state that doesn't change. So sometimes they're 1 hour different from us, and sometimes they're 2. Hey, cousin Alex, great to see you. He's dialing in from Pittsburgh, and the cherry blossoms look great there. Awesome. We were just talking about cherry blossoms. I don't know if you were on for that, but Derek and I were just saying. Maybe it was a coincidence, but Derek and I were just saying that the cherry blossom time of year in DC and Delaware is really cool to visit.
Yeah.
And then Mark Finley says there was rain earlier this morning in Texas. Oh, bummer. Blue sky and 70 degrees for the rest of the day today, though. Okay. I think you've got a golden for the Easter Sunday.
I think it's supposed to get, we're supposed to have maybe a little bit of rain here later. Probably sometime in the evening, starting around 5 o'clock. So until then, though, it's in the 60s. So when this is all over, we're going to probably go out for a walk, maybe do a little bit more gardening. So.
And I don't want to skip Karen Mack was saying earlier, celebrating my daughter's 12th birthday and having Zoom Easter dinner with my sister and brother-in-law and mother-in-law. That's awesome. What a great way to celebrate. I know April birthdays right now are very challenging for many people, but it sounds like you're bringing the family together regardless. And I don't know if her birthday is actually today or not, but I believe that would be her golden birthday if it is. So
happy birthday.
Wish your daughter happy birthday, regardless if it's golden or just another wonderful year.
And for those who don't know what a golden birthday is, that's when you turn the age of the day that you were born on.
Yeah.
So she was born on the 12th.
So I was born on the 28th of the month, so my golden birthday wasn't until I was 28. All right. And then, Rachel is saying that the cherry blossoms are beautiful there in Salt Lake City right now, too. Oh, I love how there's so many great areas around the U.S. that have planted cherry blossom trees now. We have a few here in Chicago, and Derek and I were able to take a walk around the neighborhood yesterday, and I saw not a cherry blossom tree, but other flowering trees.
It reminded us of cherry blossoms.
Yeah, and so it's just really nice to see spring actually happening and giving us all a nice thing to smile at during this time.
Yeah, and the other thing is walking around and seeing some of the decorations and stuff on the houses around us. We've seen a number of places where you walk by and there's a bunch of balloons outside the house, just kind of helping bring a little bit of a environment of celebration to the year. There's a house not far from us that has a giant Easter bunny in the front yard. That's fun to walk by.
Yeah.
First time I saw it, I was creeped out. I didn't know what I was looking at, and I was like, "Oh, Easter bunny." Okay. Thought somebody had like a Donnie Dark, or was it Donnie Dark?
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. All right, so we do have a question from Frank. Best Easter brunch experience? Discuss.
Okay.
So the best one probably was with Frank, actually. In Florida, we did a brunch at the it's the Marriott on Singer Island.
Yep.
They do a very nice Easter brunch. Massive spread, kind of everything you could want to eat. It is delicious, and it's all you can eat, and there's like free mimosas and things like that, and you just have a blast.
Yeah.
And the dessert spread was phenomenal because they have a very talented pastry chef, and that was a heck of an experience. So.
Yeah. It's always
very decadent.
Nice when you do. I think we did another Easter brunch that was a buffet as well one time. I could.
Well, we went in New York. We did an Easter brunch at a Mexican restaurant that was in Midtown, close to our apartment, and
That's right.
It was all you can eat, all you can drink. So we went to church first, and then we went to brunch, and then I don't remember the rest of the day. So I'm very happy that we went to church before we went to brunch.
Indeed.
It was fun. It was a kind of cool thing, though, because it was like all you can eat small plates, and so they had like chilaquiles and a bunch of like Mexican
order
brunch
them.
things.
You couldn't just like go up to a buffet and take them, I don't think.
No, they came around with like
Oh.
They came around with like trays, and you could like take.
I'm gonna let Derek.
I went to this thing twice. I wanted to go more, but then we moved to Long Island City, and we weren't as close to it anymore. But it was pretty cool. I don't remember the name of the place. I'll have to look up and see if it's still around. But it was basically that, and then all you can drink. I think they had like margaritas, sangria, and some other stuff. Probably mimosas.
So I don't know if you guys are all doing anything special this morning food-wise. We kind of just had the same, like eggs and toast, and then Derek made banana bread yesterday for the first time. Derek, I think I've mentioned this before on this channel.
Baking.
He is the chef and baker in this house for sure, and I just reap the benefits of that. So he's been experimenting a lot lately with different types of food. He's gotten a few
French baguettes.
Yeah, French baguettes. He's kind of going through like a French recipe kick a week ago or so, and just did like rotisserie chickens.
Doing a lot of chickens actually.
Yeah, and then baked French bread and then French baguettes, and now I think he's getting a little bit more into whatever the mood strikes, and so this week has been banana bread because we had a ton of bananas
that were getting a little ripe.
So I'm super excited. I had my first piece last night, but we both have little pieces here to munch on if we want to.
Yeah, and Ruth is saying that your scarf looks very spring. So
yes,
very
thank
nice.
you. Yes, I specifically wanted to dress the occasion this morning because I feel like this is kind of a ode to spring here on this live stream today.
So Karen Mack did not know about the golden birthdays. I did not know about them either. I didn't know they were a thing. I was had to be told. I guess when I turned 7, I didn't know that it was my golden birthday.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I made it up at some point, but no, just kidding. It's all the kids in my classes growing up were into it in elementary school.
Oh, hey, look at that. So Al is telling us that in Door County, the cherry trees usually don't blossom until mid to late May. So if things open up, we could go see them. That could be a good road trip idea.
And that's a great transition, actually, to start talking about road trips. So I read an article in the LA Times that was published this week talking about what most likely travel is going to look like moving forward once a lot of these quarantines start to lift. And of course, it's dependent on a lot of things, and these are just different travel industry experts weighing in on what they think. So it's like not going to be nearly, the doctrine of what's going to happen. But they had a lot of really high up people in the travel industry that were interviewed. And specifically, they were saying that most likely the road trip industry is going to rebound very quickly because a lot of people are going to want to get out of their homes, do these maybe Memorial Day weekend excursions if possible, and most likely do it in like camping or an RV, something that feels a little bit more safe. Hotels probably aren't going to rebound, they were saying, for several months. But there are going to be some places that rebound faster than others. They are saying most likely the smaller boutique hotels and that kind of thing are going to attract visitors first, and then the big conference resort hotels will trickle in slowly as well. So I was just really fascinated by, it all seems very logical, how people would start to respond within travel.
I think that if you look at it, right, the business travel, it kind of depends on when corporate travel starts back up again for the bigger chains. Obviously, people who go to like B&Bs and stuff like that are not corporate type. So if, personal travel starts up quicker than corporate, I could see that, making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I know that we look forward to hopefully maybe doing a road trip once things open up a little bit, and maybe Door County in May for the cherry blossoms. Who knows? We're kind of compiling a list of different ideas of things we'd like to do, depending on if it's a short trip, like a weekend trip, or a longer trip that's maybe a week long, where we would go and try to hit a number of like different states that Eliz is not, the 16 states that Eliz still needs to get to. So we're looking at that.
We'll see. So fingers crossed, things are going to start getting a little bit better. Of course, anything's possible. So we're just trying to stay hopeful over here, and really cautious still, of course. But we've just been really relieved to hear from some of Dr. Fauci and some of the U.S. experts that things might start to level off in the coming weeks a little bit more.
Yeah, so Karen and Al are talking about what she made for her daughter's birthday, and it sounds amazing. It's a chocolate banana loaf, which...
Ooh. I was...
She kept telling me, she's like, add chocolate chips to the banana bread, and I'm like, no.
That was my only note. I was like, why are you adding chocolate chips? I don't understand.
She's like, you added pecans. Why would you not add chocolate? I'm a purist.
It didn't make any sense to me why you wouldn't add chocolate chips if you could.
But Karen had me she added crumbled Kit Kat on top, and I'm a huge Kit Kat fan. That was always my go-to candy as a kid. Still is. When we buy candy for trick-or-treaters, I'm always like, a lot of Kit Kats, and let's give those out last.
Yeah. We bought Kit Kats this year at Halloween, but the chocolate was like, it wasn't chocolate on the outside, it was orange, and it didn't taste like regular milk chocolate. It was still delicious.
It was probably like a colored white chocolate.
Yeah, but we were a little bit surprised about that, especially when Derek kept sneaking some of the Kit Kats out of the little bin.
Yeah, well. So Alex is saying, between graduation and starting work, he has the whole summer off, so he'll have to think about some fun road trips. Yeah, no, definitely take advantage of that. I mean, I think that I've seen a lot of people who get kind of like that summer time off, whether it's
Yeah.
graduating from grad school or college,
And I'm
or
sure you have a little bit more free time a little bit earlier than you think too.
yeah,
With a lot of schools are graduating early and stuff like that.
yeah. So hopefully you take advantage of it and have a lot of fun. Hit us up if you want any good ideas. But
Yeah. Or if you come to Chicago.
or if you come to Chicago, let us know. But it's a good time, and you should definitely take advantage of that. To the extent that it's possible with everything going on. If things open up internationally, I'd say look into international travel as well, because it's a rare opportunity when you have that extended period of time to actually go off and kind of explore, and more than just kind of a one-off 1 week trip.
And let us know. I don't know if you wrote it in here, but are you still moving up to Boston? Because that would be. It's such a great. The New England area is such a great spot for road trips generally too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really behind, and I'm sorry. I was just getting lost in the chat in our discussion, and haven't been following the chat well. So, okay, Door County is discouraging travel there right now. They have limited healthcare facilities for virus care. That makes complete sense.
And we wouldn't go until kind of things open up and they say that travel's okay again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wouldn't recommend anyone else go anywhere either. We're not leaving our house right now, and won't for a while.
Except for our daily walks.
Yes.
Okay, and so Ruth is saying that the Cherry Festival is a tremendous experience, and historically that's been their economic base. So we'll have to see if it happens this year. If things open up and they have it, maybe it's an opportunity to go explore Door County. We've never actually been.
Yeah, I was looking into different opportunities to visit the Upper Peninsula of Michigan too, because I've never been up there and was curious about it. And no better time than the present to be able to get up there. Well, not the present. I guess no better time than 2020 later on to be able to get up there if road trips become more of a thing.
The Upers.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel had our Halloween candy too. She said.
Yeah.
we bought so much because
We expected more trick or treaters.
Yeah, it was our first year at this house, right? Yeah, and we didn't know how many trick or treaters we would get, so we ended up having a lot left over.
Good times. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have?
Mark Finley is saying, our 2-week-long European 25th anniversary trip was supposed to be next month. They rescheduled everything for July. So, in the article that I was reading, I'm sorry, I'm talking with my mouth full. Not a good look. But in the article that I was reading, European travel, the industry experts were expecting could start to get back in the swing of things later in the summer. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you because I personally would love to go to Europe this summer too.
Me too.
So I know that we talked to you, Mark Finley, a lot during the week, so I'm hoping to keep in touch on that too.
Yeah. We we've kind of been talking about different like hypotheticals, and we're kind of starting to game plan how that might work. So if things open up domestically but not internationally, it's probably going to be more of a road trip for a longer trip, since we didn't get to since it's unlikely that we're going to be able to do our standard summer trip. So we're looking at that. However, if international travel does open up, we would look at probably doing a longer trip into Europe for like a week. And we're kind of thinking about where we would go, maybe Eastern Europe, since we haven't really done much in Eastern Europe before. Maybe do kind of the Prague and Budapest type areas. But yeah, we're starting to kind of game plan some of that different stuff. Similarly, if South America were to open up, we've talked about maybe going down there and doing that again, especially given that we have a friend who would likely move back down there once things open up again. So it'd be a good opportunity to go down, visit with her, and kind of see the sights. So.
Yeah, and so this week was the first time we really started talking about what travel life would look like.
Well, starting to get a little bit more
COVID-19.
excited because like the news is starting to look a little bit better, a little bit more positive here in the United States with New York numbers are looking pretty decent. The stock market has actually Doing okay. It kind of
Knock on wood.
rebounded a little bit over the last 3 days. Just based on positive news cycle and things that are happening out in New York. So we're hopeful. We're cautiously optimistic, and we'll see what happens. But it'd be great to be able to get out and see the world a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's getting a little bit of cabin fever. At least we are. And just not necessarily that we need to run out and go anywhere right away, but just the idea of being able to have that freedom sounds really nice right now. It'd be nice to get life back on track a little bit.
I told Eliz I might want to get on as soon as Italy opens up again. That'd be fun to fly out there.
Yeah, and of course we use a lot of the Johns Hopkins dashboard data to understand what different countries are looking like continuously, just like we use it to track county by county in the U.S. So we probably would continue to do that, throughout the next few months to make sure that everybody's staying safe and healthy in any place that we want to or are considering visiting. Okay, so, sorry, are you able to read this a little bit better? Just not wanting to squint over here. But I know that we're falling behind on the chat.
Yeah, that's fine. So Alex is just saying Chicago sounds fun. He'll be in Boston. I'm looking forward to the travel.
Awesome. Yeah, we would love to see you up here in Chicago. That would be terrific. And we were hoping to go out to Boston at the end of May for our friend's wedding, but then the wedding got postponed to December. So we'll see what our East Coast trips look like this year. But no matter what, we were planning on getting out to Boston for that wedding.
So we already kind of answered this, but Darian was asking about where would be the first place that we would travel to once the virus is over. And so we were already kind of talking about that just with, regards to some of our strategies. So road trip maybe in the United States is probably the most likely outcome. So we're thinking about maybe going from Chicago down south, maybe hitting up like Savannah and where else? Savannah, North Carolina.
No, so we were looking at going from Chicago through kind of the West Virginia area. And I was actually looking at potentially the New River Gorge because photography opportunities there are really cool. But that state park is completely closed right now. So we wouldn't even consider this until state parks and national parks start to really open up. And then over most likely into North Carolina, probably more of the mountain part of North Carolina, and then down into South Carolina, maybe to Charleston, get a little bit of that coastal southern feel, down to Savannah, and then over into the southern states, because several of the states in that area are the ones that I need to go to on my list of trying to get to 50 states. So that would certainly be a longer road trip.
Yep.
We would need a lot more time. So if that would be a road trip of a week or more, most likely.
Yep.
Yeah, Asheville, North Carolina specifically was what we were looking at. We were actually talking about Asheville on the last live chat, thinking about your brother.
I think Charleston would be a lot of fun. It's supposed to be really nice. But yeah, no, I've got actually a number of family members down in that kind of area, so we'd probably be reaching out in advance and trying to hit up with them and kind of see some of the family and whatnot. So, yeah. That's the most likely outcome. So
yeah,
in Europe, I'd love to hit up Eastern Europe. I'd love to go to Italy. But again, we'd love to go everywhere. So
well, flights to Europe would need to start first, and then we would start looking at whether or not they are considered safe and essential, or if we need to think about that. So really, there's a lot of stuff still up in the air.
Yeah, so Al is saying...
We're trying to stay positive.
Yep. So Al is saying that the latest that he had heard from Dr. Fauci was, quote-unquote, maybe back to something like normal by November.
Oh, interesting. The article that I read, he was saying maybe back to something like normal by August. So, and same dude. So I don't know. I'd have to.
Things change all the time,
Yeah.
so no matter what, just kind of research and figure it out. But we haven't been staying like exactly on topic with it, or we haven't been like daily looking at like the travel news and when it might open up. So we'll have to look at that again.
I have, but
okay, she has. I haven't. It's too depressing.
Yeah, it is. It's really, you have to kind of read through some of the sad news to really understand what our path forward looks like.
Yeah, so Frank is saying that Asheville rocks, and Al agrees, and so does Ruth, and Karen is saying that sounds like a fun road trip. Which I agree. That would be a fun road trip. Especially because I get to spend all the time with this lovely woman.
What I want to know is what you guys all think about road trips, and if there's any great road trips that you want to recommend to this community. This is a question that was actually talked about a little bit in one of the Walters World live streams that we love to tune into. And I got some fantastic ideas from a lot of their community about what great road trip destinations look like. And since it sounds like that might be what's available to all of us first, it's good to kind of share that wealth of knowledge about where people want to go.
Maybe we'll get an RV.
Apparently the RV industry is supposed to be like hopping this summer as long as people are able to travel safely by then.
I don't like driving like things that are that big though, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
We don't need to either because we don't have like a big family or anything, and we don't have any pets that we would take. So I don't know if that would be the right decision for people like us.
Probably not. But Ruth did ask a question. So for all you folks still in your career years, have you discussed with your employers if they're okay about their employees taking vacations after this work from home period? So I would say that people who are actually working from home are actually working, and they're working long hours, and they're working really hard. So I don't see any reason why people shouldn't be able to take vacations once things open back up again. Just because you've been working from home and your boss hasn't seen you doesn't mean that you're not contributing and getting things done. I'd say that it's more of an issue probably long term for people who are more hourly and not getting paid right now, because they might not be in a position to be able to take vacations because they'll have to kind of try to make up some of the lost earnings that they had over that time period. So I think it's more of that. I think white collar people who are telecommuting right now, there's no reason why you can't take vacation.
And I also think at least a lot of the people that work in salaried roles, that are working from home, that sort of thing, currently they're doing a lot to support local struggling businesses or just businesses that have had significant downturns within their area. So let's say restaurants and different shops around the area buying gift cards and ordering takeout, that sort of thing. One of the hardest hit industries, as we all know, is the travel industry. So I'm hopeful that those same people recognize that as a really struggling industry as well, and want to support those businesses too.
Yeah. So Al is saying that that their Florida road trip got canceled for the spring. Nothing planned so far for the summer. Well, let us know if you're planning stuff, Al. We'd love to hear what you guys are up to.
Yeah, I mean we don't have anything necessarily planned out, but like we were saying, this week was the first time that we started thinking, okay, well, let's strategize about what life will look like 2 months from now and what we actually want to do.
Yeah. And road trips take planning, right? To have like a good road trip, you actually have to like understand what are the things along the route that you want to see. If it's an extra half hour off the route to go see something really spectacular and you want to go do that, I mean, you just need to kind of know what's out there. So it takes for a week-long road trip, it takes a lot more planning, I think, than just, a week-long vacation to a city would, right? Because you need to be very mindful about things. You don't necessarily just fall into things.
And you can't necessarily just stop at any old restaurant. I mean, you can, but you probably will get sick of McDonald's along the route. So, just researching restaurants that are local to the areas that you're visiting too is just as important for a road trip as it is for a flight anywhere.
And the cool thing about the United States, right, is that all the different regional all the different regions within the United States have different cuisines, have different things that they're known for, and so being able to get out and actually experience those things when you're in that place is really important. So, for instance, if when we're coming back through the South, we were to hit up Louisiana, I'm sure we would want to go get beignets and some different, maybe po' boys and whatnot while we're actually in Cajun country, right? So it's just things like that takes a lot when you're doing a road trip, and we definitely saw that when we were did our road trip through Scotland, where it's not just about the cities that you're stopping at along the way. It's about okay, on the way there, it's the largest mountain in Scotland is along the route, so we should probably stop off and at least grab some pictures and see what that's all about. So Ben Nevis. So it's a lot of...
Or like we stopped at Glencoe, for example, which is a big famous battlefield in Scottish history. But we didn't stay there. We stopped there and spent some time learning about what happened. Yeah. But anyway, so...
Alex says the best family road trip he ever took was an RV trip, Grand Canyon to Monument Valley to Tucson.
Nice.
For our wedding, actually.
Yeah, you guys' photos from
that was great.
From that trip were phenomenal. Honestly, and I'm sure Rachel can agree, the Utah National Parks and the Arizona National Parks and state parks, those are stunning. So they are wonderful road trip worthy destinations. And I think they're probably going to be pretty packed if they start opening up this summer, because normally they're very packed. So I can imagine more and more people would want to hit up the national parks this summer if they can.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on if there's going to be any. I haven't looked into that actually, but we bought our national parks pass for this year. I'm curious if there's going to be any sort of extension because of everything that happened or not. I guess if we had to buy another national parks pass, given that it goes to the Park Service, I wouldn't feel bad about that because it's relatively affordable and they need the money.
Have it. So. I have the pass.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm saying if we had to buy it again because it expires.
Oh.
I was asking.
It expires in January, so we are going to be golden.
I know. I'm saying that there's like months where you couldn't go to the national parks because of all social distancing. So like if they were going to extend it.
Oh, sorry, I was missing. I totally didn't
understand.
It was like reading the chat and I was confused. Sorry, everybody. But yeah. We would love to use our national parks pass. But I think, so I've been to Monument Valley, I've been to the Grand Canyon. Those places are amazing. What I would love to do at some point is go to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, because I hear there's a lot fewer visitors up there. And you can get really great views up there too. So that's definitely on my bucket list, because I've only been to the south rim. And then Karen Smith is saying great road trip is the Pacific Coast Highway. That has always been such a bucket list one too. I think for a lot of people, even people from abroad, love to do that and like come in, rent a convertible, drive down the highway with the top down, wind in your hair, and have the ocean to your left or to your right. I think that one is certainly one of the top U.S. road trips. So I would have to agree with you.
You'd want to do that in the summertime. Get a convertible, put the top down.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
We have a Toyota, so it's definitely not a convertible.
Well, we wouldn't take our car on that. We would actually fly into California and run a car.
I'm just joking. That our experience, if we drove all the way out there, wouldn't quite be the convertible level. All right. So Alex saying, I definitely saw. Alan saying, I definitely saw pics of that trip to Monument Valley and stuff. Yes, totally. And then Karen Mack saying, I honestly don't love road trips, but I'm forced into them by my husband. We drove from Toronto to Orlando twice and hit up DC and Savannah on the way. Well, at least we stopped in some really great spots, but that is a long drive. I certainly know that a lot of people from Chicago do that drive for like spring break and stuff too.
Yeah.
But you guys used to drive all the way to Florida as a kid.
Yeah,
from Indiana.
We used to drive from Indiana down, but
and that's not Toronto.
Yeah, it's not Toronto. But yeah, we used to do that. I mean, when you have two brothers and whatnot, it's a lot more economical to drive than to fly.
Yeah, but you kind of learn how to be good road trip company, I think, on those long road trips too. Or
Yeah.
Derek doesn't, but
Stop touching me. I'm not touching him. He's touching me.
Yeah, so
Especially when my little brother was very little, because you had the big car seat, and then we were like crammed on either side of the car seat, and it was just like, it was very cramped. When we got the van,
Derek's
that had like
a middle of three
captain's
boys,
chairs.
so
That was nice. Yeah.
he gets to lament about all of the road trips, I think. Okay, and then Karen's also saying, we also did Highway number 1 from San Diego to San Francisco once, and Vancouver down to Portland, Oregon. That's another great one. So when we went to Vancouver and then Seattle, we did not drive. We took the Amtrak train, but I've heard that there's a lot of people that love to do either Portland to Vancouver or vice versa, and do that drive, and that it's really stunning. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that's one that I was forgetting about, and that's an awesome trip too.
Well, and Rachel has a good point here, which is bringing a big cooler is a good way to kind of keep you healthy on a road trip, because you can bring things like veggies and just kind of healthy snacks, as opposed to kind of more traditional just buying junk food like Ho-Hos and Twinkies out of a gas station, which...
Although your parents bring a big cooler and it just has like drinks in it and stuff, for not like alcoholic drinks. Sorry, that sounded like
wine coolers for the
but
road.
like it'll be like just a bunch of drinks that they can keep cold throughout the trip.
Well, that, and we used to bring like maybe like chicken salad and stuff with us as well, and we would do that. We'd have like snacks and stuff, or we'd make ham sandwiches and eat those on the road as well. Kind of on the way.
But Rachel, you tend to bring kind of like, so Rachel works for an airline, and we'll bring like the cooler lunch boxes with her too, so that way she doesn't have to eat the airplane food. So that's a good tip, kind of no matter what mode of transport you're taking, I suppose.
They're also great if your local community happens to have like drive-in movie theaters, which are, I think, going the way of the dinosaur, but we used to go to those when I was younger, and those were a lot of fun. We still had one up through high school in my hometown. I think that one might have shut down. So if you happen to have any, though, it's a great
Maybe
thing
they'll
to bring
open
like
back
chicken
up
salad and stuff
in
with
the
you
next couple months.
I was thinking about that. I was like, that'd be a great way to like social distance and still get to like watch a movie, would be to go to like a drive-in movie theater. But
yeah.
I don't even know if those things are operating anymore.
Anyway.
Al had a pretty funny one, which is that he's strategizing the best time for a road trip to the grocery store. I agree with that.
We actually also do that strategy every single week and try to avoid Saturdays and now Friday nights too.
I've had an unlucky last couple of times out to a grocery store. Costco. So we had been really lucky when we went to Costco the last time, and there was like no line. It was really easy to get in, get out, get everything that we wanted. But then this last week I went, and there was a line kind of out the wazoo. It was no bueno, as I like to say. So we kind of skipped out on groceries this week.
And that also was, a lot of the grocery stores have shifted to one in, one out policies too. So you see the lines a lot more, because not only are there people queuing, but they also are 6 feet apart, so the lines just look massive. And rightfully so. That's the responsible thing to be doing. But I think when we did have success going into Costco right away, it was before that policy was implemented. So that was like a month ago now. Oh my goodness.
We went to Binny's, and there was a big line at Binny's too.
We drove past Binny's, which is the alcohol kind of warehouse store here in Chicago, on Friday night at 5:30, and we're like, why did we even try? Everybody's here.
Everybody's like getting ready for the weekend.
We just drove right past. We just kept going. We're like, well, we'll make what we have work.
It's like, well, we went for a nice drive.
Yes. Oh, look, we saw the sun.
So Frank has given us a road trip idea with social distancing built in. Go Chicago to Alaska.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
So head towards the Rockies, drive up the spine of the Continental Divide through Banff and Jasper, then Alaska Highway through Yukon, ending in Fairbanks.
But then you gotta go drive all the way back.
Unless you do a rental car.
I wonder how long that journey would take. But I think driving through kind of rural Canada would be fun too. But the destination of Alaska would be awesome. I think what I'm learning from this and just all of the conversations we've had thus far is that at minimum, Derek and I should maybe invest in a tent. I feel like we are completely not supplied with any sort of road trip or camping gear, and probably need to remedy that. Oh, hey, Mark and Jocelyn, great to see you guys on again. Thanks so much for.
Did you actually read what he said?
No, I don't know. Should I?
Yeah.
Shouldn't Derek just have a big box of wine with those beer hats? Could have those straws coming down. I feel like that is something for Thursday. I appreciate the note. You guys put on the best live streams, so you are experts, and therefore we'll take that into massive consideration.
Hey, Mark, if you do it with whiskey, I'll do it with wine.
Yeah, you guys do it first on Wednesday, then we'll make a call. But we were just talking about road trips for anybody else who's new on here, because I kind of opened up by saying that I was reading an article from the LA Times this week about the most likely first thing that's going to start, in the travel industry again is going to be road trips. So we were asking everybody what their favorite road trips are in the U.S. or dream road trips. So we've gotten a couple good ones so far.
Yeah, we were just talking about maybe a trip to Alaska via Canada. So
that one would be epic.
Yeah,
I think we'd have to drive through Saskatchewan too. And so one time when Derek was in Europe, staying in a hostel by himself,
I befriended a Saskatchewan
and we literally had to look up, Google it, where that even was, because we were so unfamiliar with Canadian geography at the time.
And, I mean, that's the type of place where it gets cold.
Yeah.
Cold.
And it's rural.
And so, but it was fascinating talking to this guy. He was probably in his I was probably 21 at the time, and he was probably in his he's probably 28 or something like that, late 20s. And basically, what he does did at that time, was he worked kind of construction in Saskatchewan over the summer months, and just saved up all of his money. He said, you can make really good money there doing construction and things like that. And then he would just leave Canada when it got cold, and he would just spend the next 6 months or whatever somewhere else in the world. So he would just save up all of his money, and then he'd blow it all traveling around Alaska, or not Alaska, around Australia or Europe. And so I met him in Europe on a trip to. That was Easter. That would have been Easter 11 years ago or whatever it was.
We were trying to date back to all of our Easter trips over the past years.
Because
and we added that one.
It was over Semana Santa, which Spain
that's, Week
is
of the Saints
Easter,
for everybody who doesn't speak Spanish.
It's Holy Week, so it's the week leading up to Easter, and so during Semana Santa. In Spain, you basically have the whole week off, and you can go do whatever the heck you want. And I decided that since I had the week off, I didn't have to go to my internship, no classes or anything, I would go visit her in London. So I visited her, and then one of the days I did a little trip out to Bath and Stonehenge, did one of those little tours on a bus. And that's where I met this dude who's from Saskatchewan, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Definitely, he had life right. He was the original person of, I'll work, part of the year and then travel the rest of the year.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's great. He's like, yeah, I don't have any savings, but... So I didn't go that route. But,
so Karen Mack, who's from Toronto, she's like, I'm Canadian, and Saskatchewan is the only Canadian province I have never been to, LOL. No reason to. Well, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to map it out, but I'm pretty sure we would be driving through it if we were from Chicago to Alaska. So if that ends up happening, we will of course report back to everybody what there is to do and see there. Oh, hey Eric Brown, welcome. Happy Easter to you too.
All right, so wait, Mark has the thing. It's Chicago to, I don't know what bridge softball in Madison County is.
Sorry, I just laughed at what Mark said because it's such a Mark thing to say. No one has savings right now, so there's that.
So Chicago.
I've noticed that you love to say "so there's that" too, which is such a Markism. Maybe I'll pick that up.
All right, so basically, though, I think Madison County, then the Dakotas, then Montana, come down the Rockies, hitting up the national parks, and come back farther south. That's a long trip, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds really pretty.
Bridges of Madison County. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, how's softball involved? I mean, I like softball.
Just to start talking about the Rockies, though, and road trips through, I have done that several times. Road trip through Colorado, like from the northeast part to like the southwest part. And that is actually surprisingly long road trip because the mountains themselves are so windy. It just takes so long to get through them. But it's stunning. So one thing that's important is if you are planning a trip through like the heart of the Rocky Mountains or Shenandoah National Park, anywhere that's super scenic like that, that does have the narrow, windy roads, is to make sure that you have all of the updates on your car, you've gotten everything checked out before you start the road trip, and you have somebody who can definitely keep their eye on the road, because it is so easy to want to look at all the beautiful waterfalls streaming down the side of the mountain.
That's why she has me drive, so she can look at the pretty things and be like, it's so pretty, don't look! It's so pretty, don't look! She did that to me when we were driving through Italy and going into Como, going into like Lake Como, and she's like, it's so pretty, don't look!
Yeah, that did
happen. You were like driving along like the edge of a cliff, which is a little nerve-wracking. Same thing happened in Scotland. We're like driving along. She's like, it's so pretty, don't look.
And we've discovered, back when we first were doing road trips together, we would kind of share the duties, but we've discovered that when it comes to who's better at different things, I find that I'm a little bit better of a navigator, and Derek is better at doing like the long haul drives. So typically that's the role that we default to, is I'll do the navigation and he'll do the driving. We'd probably on like a days long thing do some rotation, but like when we moved from Long Island City, New York to Chicago 2 years ago, Derek just did the 14 hours straight through with me navigating and playlist duty. Having somebody on playlist duty is also really important.
Well, yeah. And I'd say that, having music that you can like sing along to is very helpful, because
sing along songs.
It's what sing along songs. It makes it sound like we're singing like nursery rhymes or something.
That would be. We don't have kids, but that would be an interesting
just
choice.
Like itsy bitsy spider.
No, we're talking about like the Eagles.
Yeah, like the Eagles or AC/DC or something like that. Something that's like got some energy to it, because on those long drives, it's important that you kind of keep your mind occupied and like you're actually doing something.
Sing along.
We enjoy listening to podcasts together, maybe some comedy podcasts and stuff along the road, which is a really good time.
Oh yeah, we highly recommend My Brother and Me comedy podcasts for long road trips. Those will really, like, you will listen for a whole hour and just the hour just goes by. So whenever we do the 5-hour trip from Chicago to the Cincinnati area where Derek's parents live now, we typically listen to at least one My Brother and Me podcast. God bless you.
Thank you.
Springtime allergies. Hey gallivanting gals, welcome. So glad we've had so many great Walter's World friends joining today. This is really a treat. Happy Easter to everybody, by the way. So I think we're a little bit behind on this.
So Eric Brown says, I would love to travel more of Canada. He's only been to British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. I think we've only been to BC and Quebec, because we've been to Vancouver and Vancouver
What I really
Island.
want to do is the road trip around Nova Scotia. So I've looked
like
into
the fishing
flying
villages and stuff.
I've looked into flying into Halifax before, back before the coronavirus stuff, and then renting a car, and I believe it's right along the coast that you can just kind of circle the island, and that always looked stunning as well.
But yeah, so we've done BC, and then we did Quebec City. That's where we got engaged. Beautiful, beautiful city. Highly recommend it. I really want to go to Toronto. Toronto's high up on my list. Great skyline and a lot of good photography options up there.
And I heard it has a lot of great international food too.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about road trips, by the way, for anybody who's new. If anybody has other ideas for domestic road trips, whether they are in Canada or the U.S., it seems like that's the crew that we've got here today right now. Let us know. One road trip that I really loved was around Shenandoah National Park and in the Western Virginia area. That area is so beautiful, and there's like wineries along the route there too. They're pretty small in scale, but have stunning backdrops. Okay, so let's catch up a little.
So Al is asking if you prefer to use a map or GPS when navigating. Road atlas or technology?
We use technology. And I think that's important because if there's any sort of construction on any of the roads or anything like that, the technology will typically, there are two things. The technology will detour you from the get-go. That was super important last summer outside of the city of Chicago, actually, if you were driving anywhere into Indiana or Michigan, because
the whole highway was like shut down.
8094, which is the only main highway road to get east, anywhere east, was completely under construction. And so if you were just using a map, that wouldn't have pinged you about it. And so we were able to use technology to drive through and around that construction within the suburbs of Northwest Indiana, and therefore save about an hour.
You have to be careful with some of that stuff, because occasionally, like, the technology won't know any better. It might kind of reroute you through maybe some bad neighborhoods, so you just have to kind of be mindful about all that.
So if you drive a really fancy car, maybe don't do that, but we drive a Toyota.
There's certain parts in Northwest Indiana that I wouldn't, if I was driving a Maserati convertible, I probably wouldn't have my top down. Cruising along there.
Yeah, but generally speaking, we find that you can save a lot of time by using GPS services. But the other thing I was going to mention too with GPS is that they'll give you an estimated amount of time, and they'll also, if you use this, specifically Waze, it's kind of a crowdsourcing app that plugs into Google Maps that different people who have driven down that road might report, there's
a road hazard.
A road hazard ahead. Be careful. Or there's a car stopped on the side of the road. Or there's a cop pulling people over. That sort of thing. So it's just a really nice tool that
cops don't like that, by the way.
I'm sure they don't.
But
But I mean, also it keeps people to slow down in those areas too. So safety first.
All right, so Frank is asking for best road trip playlists. Eagles. So the Eagles, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin.
Whatever makes you happy and makes everybody in the car happy. So there's a couple...
No, there's a right answer. I'm kidding.
There's a couple things that I like to take into consideration, and that's, I like to really understand what songs everybody in the car would be interested in, and if everybody has very, very different tastes in music, then you start to create playlists that touch upon everybody's choices.
But the driver's the most important. No, seriously, because
it depends. If there's children in the car, usually you'll want to.
No, kids do what the parents tell them to. That's what I assume, anyways. I don't know.
That's how he was raised.
That's how I was raised. No, but like if you really think about it, it's like, and I feel very strongly about this. The driver's the one that matters the most, because they're the ones who need to keep their attention and their mind on the road. So if we're driving for a long period of time, Eliz knows that she can't put on a new song that I've never heard before, that's hip hoppy or something like that I'm not going to be able to get into, because I just can't let my mind wander when I'm doing a long drive. So she knows that I need things I can sing along to and kind of get into.
Yeah.
Otherwise
Which means our playlists are almost always the same.
Country music is always good. I enjoy a nice
it all depends on who the driver is.
And Sam Hunt and all those, Eric Church.
Yep. Yacht rock. I totally agree, Gallivanting Gals. There is a yacht rock playlist on Spotify. I'm sure there's one on Apple Music too, that you can just download in advance if you have one of those accounts, and pay for that service. And if you are going, I think Spotify typically offers you can get 7 days free or something like that. So just trying out a new service so that way you have access to their playlists on road trips might be a good time to sign up. Oh, you've scrolled backwards now. So now I'm lost. Okay, so Yacht Rock it is, and then where are we?
Gallivanting Gals. Yes, took us a minute to settle on who was going to drive versus navigating. Very important. I find that I'm not good at navigating, but she's good at it, and I'm also bad at playlists. And
Derek's funny with navigating because he'll be like, "Oh shoot, you're supposed to take that exit," and it's like, "But you're the navigator."
But also as a driver, I'm also much more mindful of being like, "Hey, what's next? When is the next thing?" So I'm always kind of always keeping an eye on that as well. And she's less likely to ask me in advance, hey, what's the exit number? How much longer?
It's good to be honest with your road trip partners in advance about what you think your strengths are.
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, beautiful day in Texas. It's good. Gonna go work in the yard. Have fun with that.
Great.
Eric is doing some house cleaning in Louisiana. That's fun. Gallivanting Gals wants to do a camper van around Banff. That'd be cool.
And house cleaning, I mean, we've been trying to do that, indoor house cleaning on days when maybe there's a little bit less sunshine or something like that. But just generally, I feel like everybody's houses are going to be so much probably cleaner after this quarantine, or not, or the complete reverse if they aren't touching it. But no, I'd be curious to know if everybody's houses are at least a bit more organized.
I keep trying to open up the windows in our house, and she keeps closing them. Yeah. We're getting into a battle of windows open and closed. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna win though because I have allergies. Yeah. And then, Gallivanting Gals want to do a camper van around Banff. Yes.
You just said that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that because I was thinking about the house cleaning. Yes. It's all coming back to me now.
This is what I live with, guys.
That was the second time I've done that on this chat so far. So Mark is saying what part of Louisiana. Terry went to NSU. So I don't know. Terry Finley usually is on some of these chats too. So Mark, tell Terry we say hi. Yeah. Karen Max says, "Come to Toronto and I'll show you around." We would love that. And actually, we can drive to Toronto from here.
Toronto's easy.
It's just a little bit. I think it's maybe an 8-hour drive from Chicago. So we could do that in a day, and that would be a really fun thing to do internationally.
If and when the border opens.
If and when the border opens.
Yeah. So Gallivanting Gals did a road trip, or they did New England in the fall in their motorhome, and it was awesome. Tell us more.
That. And is it easy to get around New England? Because the roads are pretty narrow up there, so I'm curious if the motorhomes that you guys have are really big, if you find parking really easily. I'm sure there's infrastructure in place. Yeah. I just haven't really looked into it, so I'm sure that would be a beautiful time of year to go around New England, though. Yeah. I've heard up in New Hampshire especially, kind of in the White Mountains area, fall time is just absolutely breathtaking. And then Eric says he lives in Baton Rouge. He went to SLU and Hammond. So Louisiana is one of the 16 states that I was trying to get to in 2020. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do our road trip that we were mentioning earlier on this and kind of wind our way over to the East Coast and then back around through Louisiana. That'd be really cool.
Yep.
Gallivanting Gals says the drive from Seattle to San Francisco is also amazing. Yep. Coastal towns, Portland, and then the Redwoods also stunning. Yep. I'm curious if you guys went into the Willamette Valley and if you did any wine tasting in that area. Willamette Valley, and if you did any wine tasting in that area too, because I know that it's supposed to be tons of great Pinot Noir. Especially great Pinot Noir too in Northern California.
Yeah, I was corrected by a friend from the region who's like, no, it's not Willamette, it's Willamette. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how I would not have pronounced it. But good times.
And then...
it's kind of like Versailles, Indiana.
Northern Arizona roads are also horrible. And I think what's interesting about driving in that region of the country is that you can actually tell as soon as you cross over into the Navajo Nation based on the road condition. And the road condition can all of a sudden shift depending on who updated the road most recently. So I wouldn't say one side's better than the other, but you can very quickly say, oh, we're in the Navajo Nation now or something like that. I don't know if it's like that in other parts of the country that kind of border and have highways that run through native areas. But I found that really, really noticeable when driving through northern Arizona. What are you laughing at?
It's just Walter's World. For some reason, I thought you said a Mazda Miata. I think I said a Maserati.
Maserati.
Maserati, not a Maserati.
Well, I guess, if you have a Mazda Miata and want to put the top down and do a road trip,
it's a good one too. Why not?
You go for it. I remember we watched a Fresh Off the Boat episode, which is set in the 90s, and one of the uncles bought a Mazda Miata and was bragging about it. And it just brought us back to the 90s so quick.
All right, so Mark is saying the true radio question is who gets to control the radio station. I'd say that, again, the navigator kind of is also in charge of the playlist, but I would say as the driver, you should have a veto right to say, like, no. Because, come on, you're the one who's, like, really working there, right? You're driving, you should have veto rights.
Oh, hey, Jocelyn's on now, too. This is great. So, Jocelyn's down for her RV road trip, but her husband is not. I believe we already knew that about you guys.
I think Mark has said before, right, that he doesn't like driving a lot, maybe. I'm the same way. I actually don't enjoy just driving. Like, for me, like, driving was always a chore. I didn't, I think Eliz, when she grew up, she saw driving as like this like fun thing of freedom and all this stuff, and I was more like, whatever. I was a little bit more blasé about it. So,
his dad is also a speed demon on road trips, and I think I can safely say that. I don't think he's on this chat today. But doing road trips with his father is an adventure in itself.
Although I will say, my dad drives fast, but nothing compares to. I still remember this driving. I was pretty young. I was probably like 10 or something like that, and we went to North Carolina to visit our family in the mountains. And my T.O. Bill like met us at like a gas station or something like that, and then we followed him the rest of the way to their house. And the way he drove through like the Smoky Mountains was like a bat out of hell. He was taking those corners in his pickup truck like I couldn't believe, and my dad the whole time was just like, oh my god.
That's actually one thing to note about driving anywhere that's windy, where locals are very used to the roads, because even in southern Indiana where they are...
Oh, my parents are on. Hey, darling.
Hi,
Mom.
We're talking about you. Welcome, you guys. Happy Easter. No, but even where they live down in southern Indiana, the roads can be very windy, and the locals know those winds. And so, even if you're in southern Indiana, or when we were driving along Loch Ness in Scotland, for example, like we had a worker van tailing us and like honking us along the two-lane highway.
He wasn't honking, but he was like
along
on
Loch
our
Ness, and then
on our
finally
bumper.
just passed us because they're so used to the roads that they can drive a little bit more.
Meanwhile, I'm in like a little economy car, but I'm still like taking these turns. Like, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah. So just backing up, I saw something about gremlins, or I wasn't sure.
Keep going up.
Okay, hold on. So I think the Gallivanting Gals had road trip in a Oh, that's them.
Blasting Queen.
Queen. Grew up on
Queen's also a good playlist option. Down for an RV. Okay. Jocelyn, that's funny. I just saw that.
And then Mark Finley is doing dishes as he watches.
Nice. I actually have found that I'm the dishes guy in our house now that I'm home a lot more often.
He's crushing.
I do
he's
the dishes,
crushing all the kitchen stuff.
She makes dirty dishes. I clean them. It's great.
Yeah.
Love you.
You're the best.
Thank you for admitting it. Yeah. I am the best.
I'm really bad at anything in the kitchen.
It's fine. We had 38. Okay, so Gallivanting Gals, is that answering your question about New England?
Okay.
So it was fine. So the question was around, with some of the roads are narrower and stuff up in New England. So she's saying that it was fine. We had a 38-footer, but we towed our Jeep. Yes, nice. New Hampshire was a surprise for us. We did Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire in the fall. Drove up through Boston. Loved the entire area.
That's cool. Sounds beautiful.
Yeah. Especially in the fall time. Yeah, in the fall time, as long as the leaves are changing, that's that's a great place to be.
I did a road trip with my friends Memorial Day weekend 3 years ago now, up from New York City to Acadia National Park, and just driving along the coast of Maine up that route too is really pretty if you're up in the New England area anyway.
Eric's saying that last April he took a road trip from Louisiana to Toronto.
Holy cow!
Hit up 14 states and did it in 9 days.
Oh my gosh! So you were probably in the car the whole time, basically.
Hauling it.
He said it was wild but so fun. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot more people doing stuff like that probably this summer than ever before.
Yeah.
So any tips that you have, I'm sure, share them with the crowd because we're certainly looking into road trip opportunities and how to do it best.
Yeah, I mean, my thing about road trips, though, is that, for me to do a road trip and really enjoy it, I find that I need to spend, a sizable amount of time, though, in between driving spurts. So I don't mind doing, a longer drive, a 5-hour drive in a given day, but then I want to probably spend 1 to 2 days in the location that we got to.
Yeah, maybe.
So we can explore.
I love Mark Finley saying, Jocelyn Walters, you should do love and hates of RV trips. And what I would want to add to that is Jocelyn should do all the loves and Mark should do all the hates. I think that would be epic. That would be pretty I'd press the like button on that video, I think.
Yeah. Mark's saying that he's not a driving person. It's just not his jam. I agree with you.
Gallivanting Gals, the key in an RV is to only do 5 or 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
So you can settle in for a cocktail and dinner reasonably early. Makes sense. And you're probably cooking dinner within your kitchen too. So it's not like you're going to be grabbing McDonald's on the road and keep driving most of the time, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Jocelyn saying our biggest road trip to date was Illinois to Florida, to Prince Edward Island in Canada. Oh, so you went down and up?
Wow.
All
it's
the states in between. Yeah, it is.
Big check mark.
All the states in between, and the major Canadian cities, Niagara back to Illinois, all in a Ford Flex with 2 kids. Mark drove about 800 miles.
Mark, I see why you don't like road trips. That's a big trip.
That is a really big trip.
I'd love to know if you, I don't know, I haven't read all the way down, but if you haven't, over what period of time did you do that trip? Because that seems like a long trip, and I'd love to know if you guys were stopping for any significant amount of time in the major cities and stuff like that, because again, for me to do a road trip and for it to feel meaningful for me, I'd want to be able to explore the cities along the route. So I feel like for that I would need months.
Yeah, Derek would want to stop and take photos in every single city and at every single rest stop.
Heck yeah, rest stops.
Yeah, you would.
Only if there's something to take a picture of.
Oh man, I meant anywhere in between.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant truck stops. I'm no, I'm not photographing truck stops. That's weird.
I don't know. It could be your niche.
That's not my niche.
Anyway, so Eric Brown saying Gallivanting Gals, it was fun. Since I saw a lot of new places like Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and Ontario. One quick tip too is if you're trying to check off national parks, the Arch in St. Louis is actually a national park too. So you can check out that one if you are driving up from the south into Canada, and then also Indiana Dunes National Park, right outside of Chicago, are like two of the easier ones to hit in the U.S. So
we actually haven't done the national park. We did the state park of the dunes.
Yeah, there's a state park and national park, and I haven't quite figured out. I looked this up actually a week ago. It seems like the national park is the shoreline, and the state park perhaps has all of the trails, and so they kind of blend together.
Interesting.
And we haven't yet tried to use our national parks pass at Indiana Dunes, but we will. I'll update my Instagram story as soon as we end up going over there about how state versus national park pass, how that would work.
Mark Finley, I love driving, but I will not drive in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We haven't been to Jamaica, so I'm not sure. I think they're just talking about who likes driving and who doesn't. Yeah. But we haven't been to Jamaica. I know that a lot of people hire drivers, though, to drive them around, so I'm not sure if there's a reason behind that, too.
Sorry. I'm just laughing at Jocelyn saying that it was awesome and that she made the boys watch Anne of Green Gables the whole way north.
Nice. There's a place in Canada, I believe, that is really big into having like actors dress up as Anne of Green Gables characters. I believe I actually saw it on, it was maybe a Joseph Rosendo's Travel Scope episode, maybe in Prince Edward Island or something like that, that they'll bring the Anne of Green Gables folks to life, which is perhaps what you were trying to do with the boys as you were driving up there. Okay, so then...
So Jocelyn says, do y'all want a U.S. road trip or an international road trip?
I think we're open to both right now. What would you say? International would be really just Canada and Mexico at this point, unless we were flying somewhere and then renting a car.
Yeah, so we've done a couple international road trips. We've driven through Scotland and done the whole Highlands road trip, starting out in Glasgow, working our way up to like Isle of Skye, and then up to Inverness, down to Edinburgh, and then back to Glasgow. So we've done like that whole kind of traditional loop, and then we've driven through the northern part of Italy, coming into like Milan, going down into the Piedmont region, through Turin, up to Como, then back down to Milan to finish it. And then we've done France as well, where we've flown into Paris, gone down and driven through the Loire Valley, done all the chateaus down in that area, and then back up to Paris. So we really enjoy the international road trips, and I think that probably one of the next trips that we want to do, we might think about doing as a road trip, if we do Eastern Europe, where if we were to fly into like Munich or Prague or something like that, and then hit up a number of those cities in Eastern Europe, which I think would be really cool.
We were just watching this morning Mark's new Lithuania video. So if you haven't seen it, go give it a watch and give it a like. But it definitely encouraged us to hit up some of those countries that we haven't been to in Eastern Europe, and it sounded like
or the Baltics.
The Baltics and Prague and Poland. It definitely sounds like it would be really interesting to rent a car for all of those countries. So
yeah, and again, it's one of those things where doing that versus like relying solely on like trains or buses and whatnot allows you to explore some of the more hidden gems that are maybe off the beaten path. Like in Scotland, for example, there's certain places that buses can't go to because of the roads. So if you don't have a car, you're not going to be able to get there. So one of the examples is on Isle of Skye, there's a place called the Fairy Glen.
Yes.
And it's inaccessible via bus, but if you have a small car like we had, you're able to go
it's
up there.
It's almost inaccessible via big car. Like you have to have a
very
small
car. Which, again, that was the best advice I ever got
yeah.
for our Scottish road trip. A friend of mine said, they might try to upgrade you. Don't let them. You want the smallest car you can rent, and so we stuck with that.
But that was a really cool spot. That if you were, going to the Isle of Skye via train or coach bus or anything like that, you would not have been able to go to that specific
as part
location.
of a big tour group or whatever. That's why driving on your own can be really cool and meaningful. So a good way to do it.
Yeah. All right. So Jocelyn was saying 4 weeks of the big road trip, stayed with friends and family a lot along the way. That makes total sense. And 4 weeks is a great amount of time to be able to stop, see the sights everywhere.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Eric Brown saying he's going to have to pick their brains about road trips, which we would all love that, I'm pretty sure. Galvin Gals says, we haven't been to the Indiana Dunes yet, but it's on our list. Only been in Indiana for 2.5 years and spent most of that out in the country.
Out of the country.
Cool. Respect, by the way. That's awesome. One other place in Indiana that I would like to recommend, since Derek and I
Bloomington
both went to Indiana. Outside of Bloomington, if you go in and maybe stay in Bloomington or something like that, so that way you have access to great restaurants, that's great. But during the day, there's Brown County State Park. If you really like kind of that rural setting, there's lots of really cool vistas within Brown County. And then there's also a great day trip from Bloomington to Nashville, Indiana. And Nashville is kind of an artist community. They have a lot of boutiques, and it's just a really quaint place to enjoy that Midwestern charm. So if anybody's interested in a Southern Indiana trip, that's a good spot.
Bloomington is obviously near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, we're a little bit biased, but promise I think you guys would like it. And then Jocelyn says, yes, definitely hire a driver in Jamaica. Then Eric
I've heard that the driving there is like pretty intense. We were at the Travel and Adventure Show this year in Chicago. We try to go every year now. It's a great opportunity to see like Rick Steves give talks and things like that. Samantha Brown is usually there. She wasn't there this year. But instead of Samantha Brown, they did have another guy, Josh.
Yeah, he's on the Travel Channel.
He's the adventure travel guy who does like tries to find like the Ark of the Covenant and stuff like that. He's like trying to uncover like cool, interesting things.
Ancient mysteries.
But he talked about how he went to a wedding in Jamaica and he actually did the drive himself. And everybody thought he was crazy. And he did say, he's like, it was a little sketchy at times.
And then worst international road trip from the Gallivanting Gals is they thought it would be easy to drive from Venice to Munich. And I get vertigo, and I didn't think about driving through the Alps.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be tough.
Yes, and just like I was saying earlier on this, if you're driving through the heart of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, you can also experience a very similar sensation. And even like if you have little kids in the back seat or something like that too, just the motion sickness element might be a little bit higher to consider. But generally speaking, any sort of mountain road trip can be stunning. You just want to make sure that you can handle it from a stomach perspective for sure. Yeah,
I mean, this last around New Year's, I was talking to a gentleman who had done a road trip through the like Autobahn in Germany, where they went and they rented a bunch of exotic sports cars, and then they were like basically just driving as fast as they could in the Autobahn on the areas where there's no like speed limit or anything. And he said it was great, but they only had, they had like 2 people to a car, I think, for it, so they had a few cars. He said next time they would likely do 1 person to a car, because when you're the one driving that fast and stuff down the road, that's one thing. But if you're the passenger, that is not a fun experience, I guess. So
centrifugal force when you're not sure what's coming can really hit you.
You have to think about those that are in the car with you, I guess. So it's important.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about your dad driving. Sorry, Eric.
My dad likes to hit the roundabouts a little fast sometimes in Indianapolis.
I always, because I'm 5'1", I always volunteer myself to sit in like the back, whatever the back is. So like very back seat of either a 3-row or a 2-row thing.
She's
so
going like,
I was just like, I didn't see the I can't see what's coming like you guys can.
That was fun.
Anyway, so I think so
Eric Brown, my list of places is so big that I'm all over the place. Haha. Yes. Us too.
Jocelyn was agreeing with us for a little while. It looks like the Baltics would be a great road trip, and yes, a car is the best way to see the Isle of Skye in Scotland, definitely. Frank is saying, I have a friend who has off the beaten track road trips for Scotland, Wales, England, and Ireland. It requires 6 weeks for each country. Probably not in 1 year, unless you're retired, I suppose. There's so much to see all throughout all of those countries, and the people are so great, and you can just stop in pubs along the way. I think, once we all can travel again overseas, road trips around the UK and around Ireland are phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, no, so Jocelyn said that their best international road trip was Iceland, Ireland,
cool.
and Scotland, and France.
We haven't been to Iceland yet, but I know that a lot of people rent cars and drive around and see all the natural beauty there. And that's really, I think, the only way to... It's like another Isle of Skye type situation where I believe renting a car is kind of the only way to see certain things there.
Yeah, and that we were brave to drive in Italy. So driving in Italy, for anybody who's thinking about doing it, just be aware that the drivers there all think that they're like Mario Andretti and that they, are in race cars.
Also, there were certain roads, because we were in the Piedmont wine region for a wedding for part of that time, certain roads would get down to just one lane.
But it's a two-way road.
But it's a two-way road, yeah.
So what they do instead is they have little like stop-offs that you can kind of like pivot onto to let the other car pass. And so you just always need to be really mindful and not drive too like distractedly or anything like that, and just always be aware of where those pull-offs are so you can, pull off and let the other guy pass and vice versa. So, but the locals at least like know how it works, and like they like so they'll pull off for you, you pull off for them.
But you have to be careful about other tourists.
Yeah.
Because even in Portage, Indiana, which is a suburb where Derek has family, there's a section of the road that does that too. On one of the roads.
Goes underneath the bridge and goes down to one lane.
It's not unheard of, even in the U.S., for something to do that.
Yeah. But the drivers in Italy can be kind of nuts, especially on the highways.
Oh my gosh, Mark Finley says the fastest I've ever driven is 145 miles per hour. I was young and stupid, but it was so much fun. I am actually shocked you got a car that could drive that fast. That is impressive. I mean, that's race car level. I don't think I've really driven much over 100, and even when you're driving 100, you're like, whoa, this is fast. So I can only imagine.
Yeah. Depends on how traffic's going around you. If everybody else is going like 100 miles per hour, it doesn't feel that fast. Okay, so Galvan and Gals driving from Cologne to Rothenburg, then Bruges and Amsterdam was a good trip, and dropped the car at the airport in Amsterdam. Not brave enough to drive there. Yeah, I wouldn't drive in Amsterdam. I would definitely... I mean, there's nothing you can really do to drive in Amsterdam. Most people there are on bikes or pedestrians. I would highly recommend walking or biking through Amsterdam.
Yeah. And Alan A says, when you get to the Indiana Dunes, it's fun to continue up into Michigan, to Warren Dunes, South Haven, Saugatuck, and Holland, Michigan, which are all good. And I actually went to Saugatuck last year, and that town is so cute, and it has a lot of great like ice cream shops and cafes and stuff like that, and it's right on the coast of Lake Michigan, and everyone just has a very nice, cheery demeanor there. It's such a great little getaway, especially I think it's like 2 hours from Chicago, probably 3.5 from Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And then Holland, Michigan is great because it celebrates Dutch culture in the U.S. So if you...
They do a tulip festival.
They have a tulip festival. You can like see different like windmills created in that traditional Dutch fashion. And just it's a really cool spot in the United States to learn about the Dutch.
I've been listening to a great podcast, by the way, called History of the Netherlands, which is we
started listening to it right before we went to the Netherlands in March.
Yeah, so it's a great podcast, though, that's like this Australian dude who's Dutch. He's for like Dutch radio or something like that. And it's really interesting, like the history of the Netherlands and like the Low Countries and all that stuff. But this guy's like really kind of funny, and all the names of his podcasts are quite comical. Like the one where he talks about Charlemagne is called Charles in Charge, and like different things like that, which is a lot of fun. But he has a thing in each episode where he goes, "I bet you didn't know that was Dutch," and it's phenomenal. You should definitely look it up.
Galvanting gals were saying what? Sorry, it skipped around.
Al's funny. Al's saying, "Whoa, Mark Finley, glad you survived for a 25th anniversary because you drive fast."
So they want to go up the coast of Michigan and then over into the UP. There's a lot of great stuff in Michigan, actually. And I think their website is really strong with giving all of a really good overview, the Pure Michigan website, giving a really good overview of tourist opportunities in the state.
Well, yeah, Michigan is one of the states that's done a really good job about kind of like centralizing a lot of their tourist information and whatnot.
Galvanting Gal says, "Oh my God, Italy was awful, especially the Amalfi Coast." I assume with driving. So, yeah, I mean, when you're in spots that used to probably be like people would ride horses through versus drive cars, it can certainly be a completely different experience. We in the U.S. don't realize how lucky we are that most of our infrastructure, like roads and stuff like that, kind of was developed, for cars, or thinking about at least horses and buggies and stuff like that. Even like in London, a lot of the reason why the roads in London are not on a grid pattern, they're like kind of all over the place, is they all used to kind of be cow paths, and people would just build their houses wherever, and then the roads would be built around those people's houses. So that's why they're a bit windy even in the city.
Yeah, Eric is saying that everyone in Rome drives such small cars that a Nissan Rogue would be the biggest one on the road. Well, and that's another, narrow streets is another reason why cars in Europe tend to be smaller. It's because that's what you kind of need to navigate.
Yeah.
Which, is important to remember. If you are going to be renting a car in Europe, maybe get a smaller car than what you are used to, because... and
if you don't know how to drive a stick shift, like I don't, make sure to request an automatic from the get-go.
Yeah, and make sure that you're locked into an automatic so that they have one when you get there. That's also important.
Hi, Terry Finley. Welcome.
Hey, Terry.
Great
welcome.
to see you.
I do think, though, that that's one of the things that we're looking at is how can we kind of like take a class maybe in the coming, once quarantine's up, on how to drive stick, so at least one of us knows how to drive a stick.
I asked my dad... for my birthday this year in February to teach me how to drive stick shift, but we could not track down a stick shift car for him to teach me.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed in the U.S. to rent a car
for the purpose of
teaching.
Yeah.
Fun fact. So if you are thinking, I'll just teach my kid how to drive stick shift car by renting one, you can't. So we started looking into different opportunities to, like, specific businesses that teach people how to drive stick shift, because I want to be able to rent a car a lot more affordably when we go to the UK.
It's always a lot more expensive to get the automatics.
And just when we go anywhere. Even if we went to Mexico or something like that.
I do love that Eric is saying that his sister accidentally drove about 145 miles per hour in Ontario because she didn't understand that they don't use miles per hour in Canada. And about 145 kilometers. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Definitely
need to understand the kilometer to miles per hour conversion. When we were in Italy too, they would post, the speed limits, and we were told in advance when we were driving there, like, that is the actual limit. You know how in the U.S. it's kind of like
plus or minus 10.
Yeah. You just have to be very mindful about not going over.
Well, especially because in Europe it's usually like via camera. Like, they don't actually pull you over physically in a lot of the EU. Instead, they have like cameras that catch you, and then they'll send the ticket to the like Hertz or wherever you rented the car to, and then Hertz has to track you down and get it to you. That actually happened to us, where we got a speeding ticket from France, I want to say, that we got probably like 6 months after
about that.
That we then had to figure out how to pay. At first we were like, maybe we'll not go to France again, but then we decided we want to go back to France, so we paid the ticket. So
yeah, and that was a joke. I definitely was going back to France again. Love it there. I'm trying to learn French on Duolingo. Every evening I open my Duolingo app to learn a little bit more French during quarantine. Bye, gallivanting gals. Great to see you guys.
Great seeing you guys.
Enjoy your Easter cooking. Terry Finley saying, for Mark, any small cars are a no-no. Yeah, your husband's 6'8", I hear, and or was it 6'10"? I don't know. Either way, certainly too tall for the teeny tiny cars. That's for sure. And Jocelyn says manual transmissions are easy. Jeeps and Porsches have the easiest.
I guess we got to get a Porsche, babe.
I know. I mean, we got to track down a Porsche. But no, Jeeps can be really fun. I've always kind of wanted a Jeep Wrangler. Not that
She wants to take the doors off.
Yeah, like I just want to feel cool and sporty. I don't know if it was because Lorelai in Gilmore Girls drove one, but I really think those cars could be fun. So I would love to learn on a Jeep if ever possible. Terry's saying there's a manual transmission on her Cavalier she had in the early 90s, and it was so easy to drive the stick shift. I'm hoping it's pretty. I'm a quick learner too, because I believe the class that we take is by the hour, so probably the slower I am at learning it, the more money we will pay.
I hope she's a quick learner.
And Darian saying, I have been caught in Germany on camera too. Yeah. So were you given a speeding ticket, like mailed to your house in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing in Germany, right, is that even in the Autobahn, there's a lot of areas, especially around like the towns and stuff, where there is an actual speed limit. So you have to kind of be mindful of, driving through Germany and understanding like when there's a speed limit, when there's not a speed limit, and kind of how to act on the road, because there's an etiquette to it all.
Yeah. Mark is saying, oh hush, you can always go back to France, but do you learn or just open the app?
Like me and my exercise bike, I look at it each day, but
so I've been trying to keep a streak going, and I have it set up to send me a notification every day. Like, hey, you haven't opened Duolingo today. So that is a little bit helpful. I don't spend a lot of time on it. Each lesson, if you will, is less than 10 minutes. So if you only want to just do the quick hit and say, okay, I at least did it today, which when you're learning something, creating a habit is super important. So if I just want that quick hit, like, okay, check the box, I did it, then I might just spend 10 minutes doing that. And I love the fact that Duolingo, you have to speak to the phone, and they'll say like the word in French, and then you have to repeat it back, and they pass me in ways that my French, like the words that come out of my mouth sound so American compared to what they say, and they're like, correct. That was not correct.
Yeah. That's why I think something like a Duolingo is probably really good for, like some basic vocabulary and things like that. But then, if you really want to like learn the language, I think you need to find a native speaker to speak with, so they can actually help you with pronunciation and things like that. So I know there's a lot of things online, like you can do that through like Zoom and different things like that to do kind of almost like a face-to-face thing. There's a guy out there, he's a polyglot, so he knows like 15 languages or something like that, who kind of did a whole thing where he's like, you can learn a language anywhere in the world with the beauty of, like the internet. He's like, as long as you have an internet connection, there's no reason you can't learn a language fluently with a native speaker's help. So I think he to like demonstrate this, he was like living in Brazil at the time, and while he was living in Brazil, he was learning Arabic, so that he could like go to the Middle East and kind of like get around and all that stuff. So he actually, over like a summer or something like that, learned Arabic in Brazil through the internet with a native speaker on the other end, and then went over and did a whole video on it and stuff. So
yeah. But just to circle back real quick and close the loop on, if you're trying to develop a habit or learn a new skill, I find that basically making it dummy-proof for yourself, that you are at least going to do 15 seconds of it every single day, will help kind of snowball into you're actually going to learn that skill or do that thing, especially when it comes to like, I don't know, there was a moment where I said to I think it was a year ago or so, when I was first starting to try to learn yoga more, And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do yoga every single day for 30 days. And when it's got a time limit to it, then I was like, okay, well, it's only 30 days out of my life or something like that. And then I set reminders to myself, to do it every single day. And then did it actually happen every day? No, but it happened probably 25 out of 30 days.
Yeah.
And so I actually learned a lot of yoga and started to enjoy it more and more. So I read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear recently, and Derek actually read it after I did. And it's fascinating to really understand your personality type and what habits you can develop to reach your goals.
Yep, so Darlene is saying Gatlinburg, Tennessee, then up over the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina is a beautiful road trip. I agree, that's a very nice trip. Again, as long as you're not following T.O. Bill in his truck, because he goes fast.
Yeah. We're actually talking about earlier, before you guys joined, about doing a North Carolina. I mean, I don't think North Carolina is the end destination, but
probably through.
We were talking about a loop that involved North Carolina and Smoky Mountains.
So Jocelyn has had 2 Wranglers, and they are stupid fun. So that sounds like fun.
Especially if any of them were when you were in Tucson, because there's a lot of great off-roading opportunities down in Tucson.
Yeah, and Mark is saying that she likes to take the doors off the Jeep.
That's so fun.
Mark is agreeing with Darlene that is a beautiful part of the country, North Carolina and whatnot. Al is agreeing that he likes the doors off too.
We got a lot of really cool Jeep people on this chat, and I am digging it.
Terry is also agreeing that it's a beautiful part of the country. Okay.
Darian from Germany, Travel Personal Guide, says, yes, it costs me
30 euros.
It cost him 30 euros, the ticket from Germany. At least that's not terrible. But yeah.
I think ours got upped because it took so long for them to find us.
Yeah, I think we ended up paying $100 or something like that.
Yeah, it was kind of sad. All right, so Mark is saying Blitzen.
Not just
sounds
Christmas
like a reindeer
anymore. Blitz is what the Germans call the camera. Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely thought you were transitioning into reindeer territory there. And then Mark say, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I am trying to learn French slowly but surely. And Duolingo certainly helps make it a little bit more fun. Eric Brown saying, I took French a couple of years in college, but I felt
silly
actually.
Conversing with French people,
yeah.
I know nothing. I think he's saying silly. It says sissy, but I think he meant silly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know no French. I know enough to be like bonjour, and that's about it. S'il vous plaît.
But hopefully, like, what we hear a lot is that if you give it a try to learn any sort of local language, whether it's in a French-speaking country or in China, as a traveler, you want to learn kind of those basics, and then the locals will be a lot friendlier to you.
Yeah. So I always try at least the basic niceties.
I remember when I was in France last fall by myself, last summer by myself when I got stuck in France for 3 days. I went to a sushi restaurant, and so the wait staff spoke Japanese and French, but no English. Sushi was phenomenal, by the way. It was in the 6th arrondissement. And I had taught myself how to say the check, please. And so I was like, la décision, s'il vous plaît. And they spoke back to me. And they told me, like, you pay in the back. But I had no idea what they were saying. So I was like, oui. And then I sat there for another 5 minutes. And then they came back and I said, la décision, s'il vous plaît. And they said the same thing back to me. And I had no idea what they were saying. And so I just sat there for like 20 minutes. So I don't know if you could feel much sillier than that.
I was not there.
Until I finally figured out what they were saying from context clues and watching other people in the restaurant get up to go
everybody
pay.
else is going in the back. Weird.
And so I'm sure they thought I was an absolute Looney Tune, but can't feel much sillier than when you have that kind of like, oh, I tried, but but I still have no idea what's happening right now.
Yeah. So Al is saying that Ruth and him did the trip every year for 10 years when Ruth's parents lived in Greensboro. And they loved it. That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that they lived in Greensboro.
Yeah, they retired to Greensboro, North Carolina right before I was born and then moved back.
Oh, okay. Did not know that. All right, so Mark thinks that I should send you to France for 6 months to 10 years to really learn. I mean, if I really love you.
I think that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'd want to go too.
I miss you.
I want to go too.
I miss you.
I want to hang out in France.
Especially after this quarantine where we're just together all the time. It's like, ooh, that sounds separate.
Terry is saying that she took German in high school and Spanish in college, and they get all mixed up now.
That's funny.
Those are two funny ones to get mixed up.
Yeah, those are two very different languages too. I know that a lot of people who took like Portuguese and Spanish or Italian and Spanish, they'll mix those up.
Yeah. Portuguese and Spanish. I think Mark, you probably understand that one.
All the Latin-based languages can have very similar words.
Yeah.
All right. I definitely, if anybody wants to actually speak French to me, like my mom is saying, that is probably not going to happen unless you want me to just ask you for a glass of wine over and over again. I am not at the conversational level quite yet, but I'm getting there. I'm getting better. I can order off of a menu at least a little bit better. I
will say the one word in French that always I just feel so silly saying is water, because it's like
Well, I was joking with my friend. I feel
like I'm not saying something. I'm like, I feel like they're lying to me. I feel like that can't be water.
So, I was joking with my friend when we were in France, in Lyon, after we'd been drinking a little bit and learning a little bit of French last fall. And if you translate, I would like a water and an egg, s'il vous plaît. It's like, le œuf et le œuf, s'il vous plaît. And they all sound so similar.
Yeah.
That it's funny when you learn something, all the different words, and they all sound so similar and so funny.
Yeah, so Karen Mack is saying that she speaks French because she was born in Montreal.
Oh, that's terrific.
But then in France, many of the French people would switch to English when they heard my French-Canadian accent. Mm-hmm. Not all, but many. It was a bit annoying. Yeah, that would be super annoying.
When we were in Quebec City, I think we mentioned this on one of the other live chats, but our very first encounter with anyone after we landed,
immigration.
Customs, was when we were trying to get in the taxi cab, and we were told that people typically were bilingual, and we would be able to get by with just English. But then we got in a taxi cab, and the man who was driving was actually from Haiti.
Haiti, yeah.
So he only spoke French, and we did not speak a lick of French at that point. And so it was very difficult to communicate immediately how we were getting to and from the hotel. And so that's why, kind of since that experience, I at least I don't want to assume, even if someone says a destination is bilingual, that whoever we encounter will also be. And learning at least how to say your hotel's name in the local language or something like that can be really handy. For sure.
Yeah, so Mark is saying, I thought April would struggle with French when she signed up for it, but for whatever reason, she picked it up great. She skipped French 2 and went straight to French 3
in high school. Oh my gosh, you should have your daughter just take you around France. That would be so fun. Or even just go into Quebec. I'm sure because we both speak Spanish, anytime we go somewhere that's Spanish speaking, we love practicing. So I'm sure she would love to go practice somewhere that's a lot of people speak French too.
Yeah, practicing Spanish and stuff, and it's also nice because you can actually converse a little bit more with the locals and whatnot when you can speak a little bit of the language. So
yeah, and Terry Finley saying that she was looking at the difference, a video about the difference between Canadian French and French in France, and they're researching a trip to Quebec. That would be so fun.
Definitely go to Quebec City. Quebec City is phenomenal. It's a gorgeous town. It feels like Europe, but here in the United States, or not in North America. Being the only, I think it's the only walled city north of Mexico that still has its wall up. You can go walk
UNESCO
around the
World
ramparts
Heritage Site.
ramparts.
And the Petit Champlain is this. There's like a upper town and lower town, and in the lower town is where we stayed, and it's just this cobblestone, stunning, old-timey street that has all these restaurants and boutiques and
They have a vernacular that you can take to get up to the high street. They have a great park there called the Plains of Abraham, which is where I think that was like the deciding battle between the French and the English armies that made Quebec become an English colony as opposed to French. But yeah, no, it's a really cool park and stuff. You can ride bikes around. It's really worth exploring.
Certainly. And thanks, Jocelyn. Happy Easter to you too.
Bye, Jocelyn.
I know you have to run. Wow, we've been on for a while. It's been such a fun Easter chat with everybody. We've had a great time. But yeah, we if we were going to Toronto, maybe we would keep going after our Toronto trip and go into Montreal at least too, because Canada is such a great place to do a road trip as well. What else? Darian saying, I know how to ask for French dressing. That's awesome. Well, I applaud you because I know that you are pretty good at German too, so I think that'll be a good language to know too.
Eric Brown is saying that I had 5 Uber drivers in Miami who didn't speak any English. They only spoke Spanish. So it's not only when you're traveling abroad. So
they didn't
I guess
speak
that's true.
any English. Interesting.
In Miami, I was at a Publix in Miami, and I was like,
Publix is like the grocery store.
It's like the grocery store.
Chain.
Yeah, it's one of the
really common in Florida.
And I just remember this like little old white woman walks up to me, and all of a sudden just like starts asking me all these questions in Spanish, like rapid fire, and I'm just like, I wasn't expecting this, because she didn't look like she would speak Spanish like that.
Well, whenever
but so she's asking me all these questions about the bread, and like, is the price up and down or this way? And I'm like, I have no idea, and I don't speak good enough Spanish for this conversation. But yeah, no, it can be a little jarring sometimes when you're not expecting it.
Whenever Derek and I have been in Spanish-speaking countries, and say we have a reservation in Derek's name at a hotel or a restaurant or something like that, most Hispanic people understand that Derek's last name is Spanish, but just looking at it,
a lot of people think I'm Greek.
A lot of people think he's Greek, or I think
some people think I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
A lot of different things.
But traditionally, it's a Spanish last name.
Spanish and Portuguese.
And so people will assume that he speaks fluent Spanish, especially if we're in Spanish-speaking countries. And then they get so surprised when we speak it, but we're certainly, neither of us are fluent. He's a little bit better than I am.
I have the conversational skills of a 3-year-old. So,
and mine are about at the 2-year-old level.
But no, it's fun. I actually, a funny story, I was checking into a hotel in Germany, and the guy who was checking me into the hotel happened to be Hispanic, actually from like the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, and so like the entire check-in process for me was in Spanish when he saw my name. And I was just like really not ready for this, because I'm in Germany. I had just gotten done with like a really long drive in a car. I was starting to get food poisoning, and I just remember being like, "Rápido!" I was just like, "We need to go faster than this." He kept asking me questions and stuff, and I'm trying to like respond to him in Spanish while also thinking about, wow, my stomach feels bad, and good times.
He got food poisoning in Germany last fall.
Yeah. Not a good time.
But yeah, so that's certainly one thing that we have to learn anywhere that we're going that's Spanish speaking is how to do those like interactions with hosts or front desk people at hotels pretty well.
All right, so Marcus and April would love to go to Paris someday. First trip to Paris is for our anniversary. Maybe I'll take her next time, or at least to Quebec. So that's good.
Yeah.
And then Frank is saying he had an experience in Berlin where all these Italians walked up to me, rattling off in Italian. Was all brushed up on my German, but not my Italian at the time. So that's kind of funny. So Frank Dagnese, very Italian name. I'm sure that confused the Italians a lot. But that's pretty funny.
It is funny, and a lot of times you want to be able to practice too, but it's funny when they just assume that you're going to know a lot more than you do. And I was just saying, I think on the Walters World Live chat yesterday, about how when I went to France, people would come up to me because I don't typically wear like American brand clothes and stuff when I travel. I try to blend in with the local culture, and I've had so many people on the streets of Paris just stop me and ask me questions in French, just like look at me and assume that I'm French, even though I'm not. So
it's the scarf.
This is actually a British brand. Scarf Catkinson. But anyway, it's funny when you kind of get taken off guard like that.
Nobody ever thinks I'm French. So Terry Finley saying that her former brother-in-law doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. His grandmother only speaks Spanish, and his mom is the only bilingual person between him and his grandmother. So she
translates for them?
That's funny.
That's amazing.
That'd be tough. That would be really tough.
There's a TV show that we used to watch called Jane the Virgin
which is a great show, by the way.
Only spoke Spanish, but she would understand everybody in English, so they would actually film it with the grandmother had English subtitles underneath everything that she said, and the conversations would literally be bilingual because they would always talk to her in English, and she would always respond in Spanish. Yeah, which was kind of funny. Yeah, and it's a good way to do it. It's so indicative of how those multi-generational families can be. All right, bye, Karen. Thank you so much for joining. Happy Easter. And then my mom is saying when Opa went to Amsterdam, he spoke Dutch with an American accent. It freaked out the locals. Well, that's probably because there's not a lot of Americans that can go speak fluent Dutch, right? Because that's just not a language that I think most Americans would learn. So I'm sure that would kind of be like, well, why do you know our language? Yeah. Well, he grew up there too, but then didn't go back to Amsterdam until the 80s after he left during the war. So I'm sure because here in the U.S. too, I mean, he definitely probably had a transition period where he was speaking English, but in a Dutch accent, I would assume too. Yeah. You might just have been a little too young to hear it, I assume. So Al's signing off. Happy Easter to everyone. He's going to go grab some lunch. Great. Well, thank you guys for joining. Mm-hmm. I think we'll grab some lunch too. I've been nibbling at the banana bread that Derek baked. I demolished my banana bread. We have been on for 2 hours, so... Yeah. It was really we weren't really sure if people were going to join today. We're super pleased you guys all came. Yeah, we literally were like, we're gonna have to talk to ourselves, I think, because it's a holiday. So I think for everyone it's just been a weird holiday, weird month. So we're just really delighted that you guys all still tuned in. We loved talking to everybody, especially loved talking about road trips. I think it was really helpful to hear what everybody's enjoyed. And I think hopefully we can all start kind of planning what the summer at least might look like when it comes to road trips, and keep our fingers crossed that they could come to fruition. Yeah, and thanks for spending the time with us. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Easter holiday, or just your Sunday if you don't celebrate the holiday. And we look forward to talking to you guys later in the week. We'll be on Wednesday with Walter's World, and we've got our next one on Thursday. Yeah, so Mark and Terry definitely will be tuning in on Wednesday to Walter's World live stream with a glass of wine in hand. Definitely great to chat with you too, Darian. And thanks to everybody who is still on. I think that it's just been really great to see this core group of people coming in on Thursdays and Sundays with us. So, all right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Peace. Enjoy. Bye.